nice. Louis, your moves there were great, mate. They were fantastic.
Thank you.
Good
I've
morning.
been missing the dance floor.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you're all doing great. In fact, no, I did that wrong. I need to go like this. Bonjour, bonjour, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Marketing Meetup webinars, the positively lovely community for marketers everywhere. Thank you all so much for being here today. I can already see some lovely comments coming in from people all around the world. Keep those coming in and make sure to switch your messages, however, to all panelists and attendees so everyone can see your messages, not just Louis and I. Matt has been caught out already and yeah, love it. And by the way, as part of your chat messages, then definitely, in honor of today's guest, drop in the chat feature your favorite marketing podcasts. It'll be great to sort of get a list, to crowdsource the list from the world's loveliest marketers in the world. So I start off every week by saying 3 key points that we're going to hit to make today a success. And this week is no different. So I would love it if we do these 3 things today. The first is that you leave having learned something new or having your perspective changed on anything, whether it's marketing, meeting a new connection, or anything indeed, is now invested in you. Secondly, that chat feature, which right now I can see that Andrew's just said he's watching from Weymouth, Catherine's from Oxfordshire, Jade from Essex, Sarah from Gloucestershire, James just dropped in a marketing podcast. That chat feature stays alive throughout the duration of today's session. Louis and I and our guests today will be doing our best to inform, educate, and make it a really nice time for you today. But the other half of this is making sure that you get involved, so that chat feature stays on fire. That would be really great. And then the third thing that I'd really appreciate, and I'm sure the rest of the community does as well, is if you share today's session, whether that's afterwards in a LinkedIn, Twitter, or whatever post, or share with a colleague or a friend that the Marketing Meetup community is here for you. This has been set up in the spirit of just looking to help other people. So it would be nice if we can help more people. With all that said, it's time to introduce our guest today. And today it's Louis Grenier. Louis is the founder of Everyone Hates Marketers and someone I can very proudly just call a friend as well. Louis every day fights marketing bullshit. And what that really means is that he sits in a place where he helps companies stand out from the crowd, in places where I'm pretty sure a lot of marketers on this call right now can empathize with the feeling of I'm in a busy space and how do I stand out? Louis helps people do that. And he does it so well that really there's only 2 people in the world who I'd really trust with any sort of positioning work. One of them is in the SaaS tech space, and Louis helps everyone else. I'd really recommend him. I think he's absolutely amazing. So really buzzing to have him involved today. Today is going to run a little bit differently to usual. In fact, we've never done anything like this before. So it's a hot seat session, which means that we've got 8 challenges that have been submitted by the Marketing Meetup community over the past couple of weeks. The folks are going to be invited to come on and speak today. So you're going to be able to see them. You're going to be able to see some of your other community members. Each challenge is going to last for about 8 minutes. So those of you doing quick maths will realize that's about 8 challenges by 8 minutes. That's about 64 minutes. But even after that, we've got time for Q&A as well. If you have questions, pop them in the Q&A feature found down below. And then what we'd also love you to do is just pop at the end saying happy to talk. Because if you've got a question that we'd like to answer online on the session, then it would be great to actually have you asking it as well. So hopefully that sort of feels really exciting as well. And by the way, if you haven't guessed already, there is a bit of a health warning on the language. If you don't like swearing, it's probably best to leave now. So that's my one sort of health warning, and then it's down to you. Before we get going, I want to just say a big thank you to our sponsors. And today's featured sponsor is Thirdlight. Thirdlight are great for anyone who's looking to graduate from Dropbox, Google Drive, or WeTransfer to manage their marketing assets. but would like a more efficient way of managing their marketing content. And so that's what Third Light do. That's what they're there for. Third Light are based just outside Cambridge, but have the most ridiculous client list in the world. They're really, really lovely people, but like the people they work with is phenomenal. They've literally just started working with Sony, the games division for PlayStation, and they've also just put up a 30-day free trial for anyone from the marketing meetup. So all you need to do is go to thirdlight.com/trial and enter TMM21 after your name in the form, and then you get a 30-day free trial. And Dale, you've never heard of them, but now you have. So there you go. So that's a big thank you to Third Light. A big thank you also to our other sponsors, each of which will get featured in the next few weeks. So thank you to Geosk, Impression, Content Cal, Pitch, Fiverr, Redgate, Cambridge Martin College, Brand, and Gravity Global. One ask is please take the time to thank those people, because they've kept this show on the road over the past year. So, Louis, that's my introduction done. So thank you for being here, my friend, and let's get going.
Bonjour, bonjour. And yeah, thank you so much, Joe. When I launched my business almost a year ago at this stage, after working in-house for a long time and doing my podcast and everything and dreaming about running another business, you were the first one who actually invited me to speak about my area of passion and expertise, or trying to be expert at least. And the amount of response and feedback I got from this single session surpassed anyone else after that, any other after that, and it gave me such a boost. I mean, I don't think you realize the confidence that I got from just that single session that day, like 10 months ago. And so I'm really, really so happy to be here again today. I will try to not curse as much as I normally do, but yeah, I might say a few curse words here and there, because I'm really passionate about the topic, and I don't think professional that means not cursing. And I will talk about that with someone who submitted something on those lines. So one thing quickly, so Joe and I coordinated with the next person who's going to join. We'll ask everyone who comes with a challenge to share their name, what they do, and the specific challenge that they have. And then for 8 minutes, we'll have a kind of a back and forth. I'll give tips and advice, and everyone else can take notes, because the beauty of those sessions is that you will get value from it, even if you're not the person who's talking, because a lot of challenges are very, very, very similar. So I think Kacem is already here. Good morning. If you can, and there you are.
Morning, bonjour.
Bonjour, bonjour. So tell us your name, who you are, and your challenge that you submitted, please.
Right, my name is Kacem, and the challenge, no worries. Yeah, so basically, about a year ago, just during lockdown, I decided to launch my own digital marketing agency. The challenge I found is, as being an in-house marketer for like 11 years, breaking into the agency world, I felt like I should be niching, I should be specialized, and I should think about my positioning and all that. And I found it extremely challenging, as I'm someone you could describe as a generalist or a jack of all trades. And I often worked in really small teams with really small budgets. So you find yourself kind of doing pretty much everything from SEO to website to content, social media, everything. So right now the challenge is, I've narrowed down the niche. I graduated from nursing school, so I gravitated towards healthcare. So that is covered, and I'm comfortable with that. Now, when it comes to services, my challenges, I feel like they're all interconnected. So if I have a client that need a website, then they will need content, they will need, promotional distribution for their content and all that kind of stuff. And I'm really struggling to find what I really want to do or like to do, or something that is actually of a need out there.
Thanks, and thanks so much for joining first and sharing that challenge openly. The reason why I really wanted to talk to you is because your challenge is very, very common. And you mentioned in your submission that you felt paralyzed about it, that choice, which target market to go for and whatnot. So you want to make sure you make the right choice, right? You might be afraid that if it's too small, you won't be able to make ends meet, right?
That's right.
one of the core things to realize here is that excellence in any extremes always implies a trade-off. And you've already starting to do that. I think I applaud your choice to go through for healthcare in particular. I think it's a great move, but I think you can go further. And so in running back and forth between different opportunities, you will miss out on the time that is actually important, the thing that is important, right? So if you start running around different sub niches in the healthcare industry, you might actually lose opportunity in one specific one, right? So the question for you and for everyone else when it comes to picking the right market and niching down, really, really niching down, is what are you missing out on by not going super niche and by not focusing on that one single sector, and or not necessarily sector, but the one single thing. And then we'll come back to the services you can offer. So what are you missing out by not doing this? You're missing out on expertise. By focusing on one core sector, one type of service, or one thing you do, you have the opportunity to learn about it every day. Secondly, you miss out on more money, because specialty and expertise is seen to be, when someone specializes, they're seen as an expert, and you get more money out of it. And you miss out on something that is called satisficing from the people's perspective, which is a mix of satisfaction and suffice. Those two verbs, which basically means that people don't choose the best option out there when it comes to anything. They tend to choose the least risky option. And that's so very important to understand in their own context. The least risky option for people who are, let's say, in healthcare on a very, very specific sector is to pick the exact consultant that's specialized in that sector. That is the least risky option for them because they know you understand their challenge and whatnot. So can you just, I wanted to make that note around first, the mindset, the target market, because I know people are so hung up about this target, like it's too small and whatnot. You can calculate your market size. You can just do napkin calculation and realize that there's a lot of people out there, and you might need 3 or 4 per like quarter to make ends meet already. So the question I wanted to ask you briefly is, so what service are you offering right now?
Just by accident, I'm doing websites mainly, followed by just social media content. It's not something I enjoy. I find myself like I enjoy the strategy, the creative, the creating the funnels. But that's not something I'm getting to do or able to demonstrate the value of just yet. So just kind of now, yeah.
And what type of companies are you working for with roughly? Like what's the actual?
So for now, the small private clinics, so like osteopath, physiotherapists, podiatrists.
That's great.
Yeah,
like that's awesome already. I mean, you are already much further than most consultants out there. You've already taken quite a risk, at least from an outside perspective. I would say that it's not risky at all what you did. It's the only unrisky option, really. So what I would challenge you to think about is that not in terms of services you offer, the features like websites, social media, funnels, whatever, in terms of the job to be done. You know, what are those people hiring you to do, right? And it's roughly around the same thing. They want to make more money. They want to save costs. They want to save time, right? Yeah. Now you can go more specific. So you mentioned a word here that's interesting, funnels, right? I would really challenge you to look at the reason why those physiotherapists and those people start looking at a solution like yours. Why are they deciding to act and hire someone like you? What is the trigger? Super important concept here, right? What make them say, you know, I want something like you? That's going to give you the first hint. Their revenue might be stagnating. They might have competition coming, a neighbor that's just starting their own business as well. So what is that reason? And once you understand that reason, you can think about, okay, what is the next step and how can I help them solve it? So I would get away from the first layer, which is just the thing you do, and instead get super excited about the very specific job to be done. Like if you reverse engineer for me, for example, I help you to radically stand out. Now, there's so much I do, strategy, customer research, you know, like even the high level funnel. I do all of that as well. But you see, I only focus on the very, very core pain, the one single thing that people care about the most, which is painful enough for you to join with audio and video. So it's the same for them, right? And with the next person, I'll explain how to actually get that data and whatever. So please keep listening because there'll be a lot for you. I think the next 6
Yeah,
are
for sure
probably
do.
something that you'll get value from. But I wanted to start with that, which is it's never about the features. It's really about them. People are selfish. They care about themselves only. What is the trigger? What is that thing that just make them want to do something right now today?
Cool. Merci beaucoup.
De rien. We have a bit more time. So any other questions?
No, that's helpful, really. And it often with marketing, obviously, it always comes to the pain or the trigger. I mean, that's probably, I haven't thought enough about that.
So I would just make a distinction here because I see people saying it's the pain point. So I'm going to be anal about it and say that's not exactly the same thing. The trigger or triggers is a series of events, external events, internal events, something that happens in their head that make them turn a job into a job to be done, something that they must do today because it's so painful. The pain are the thing that preventing them from reaching that goal, the constraints, the habits, the things that might be in the way. The two are quite different. And most of the time people understand the pain side and the gain, but not the triggers. There is a reason why people start to act now, and it's like a top priority problem. And that's the trigger. So I just wanted to repeat that.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining first, man. So there we go. Todd, how are you, my man? If you can unmute yourself, you don't have to show your face, but there you go. Well, there you are.
Happy to show my face. Hey guys, how are we doing?
You beautiful human being, you.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated.
So welcome. So tell us who you are, what you do, and the specific challenge that you have today, please.
Yeah, so my name's Todd Chambers. I run an agency called Uproar Media, and we specifically help B2B SaaS companies scale up paid media. We do analytics and measurement, conversion rate optimization, messaging, a little bit of positioning. We also have a podcast, Masters of SaaS, with roughly 9 people. We're based in Amsterdam. And I guess the challenge is, how do you stand out? I don't know if you noticed, but there's quite a few agencies in the world. So how do you stand out? So I guess following on from Kacem's question, how can we kind of lean into that radical differentiation?
Yeah, so great second challenge, and thanks for submitting it. So everyone with a brain and a laptop and an internet connection can start an agency today, right, and compete against you. So the key is that the services you offer or the market you're going after is important, but there is definitely another layer to it. So my advice would be, and that's the same for Kacem, who just who came in before to you, would be to really look into the list of customers you have. And I know you keep doing that, and you've already specialized enough. But my advice for you and everyone else here is to look at the list of customers you had recently and rank them across 4 dimensions: access, joy, money, and pain, right? Access being, do you have access to a lot of them? You seem to be doing a lot already in podcasts and whatever, but such an important question. A lot of people forget that, like, do you have actually access to the type of customers you want to go after? Do you have a Facebook group, a podcast, somewhere where you can tap into that community? Joy, do you actually love working with them or not? And that's so important, energy level wise, especially for agencies. Pain, is it a bleeding neck problem? Are they literally like bleeding out right now? They need something today, like it's just top priority. And then money, like can they pay you and all of that? So what I would advise you to do is not just look at the industry in general and say, well, we love working with SaaS and we love doing that. I would try to really look at the underbelly of it, like the actual individual clients. And I would try to understand, even if they're all in SaaS, is there something different about them that makes me happier to work with them, where they like, maybe they have more money? Like what is this element? And it's kind of a detective work here to try to understand the little things that actually could make a big difference, right? And the little thing here I'm talking about is the psychographic element of it. So at this stage, like B2B SaaS, I know so many agencies doing B2B SaaS. Everyone is like, it's like the rush goal, the gold rush yet over again, because they have money and whatever. But what makes some of them more interesting than others? And that's usually the psychographics, the dreams that they have, the specific pains that they have, the specific things that make them super, super exciting to work with. So I don't know if you've done that before, but I would really interview them from this perspective. So I would look and talk to those clients again, but instead of trying to sell anything or whatever, just listening to the core question, which is like the triggers. What make you start saying, I want to hire an agency like yours? How did they go about finding you? The number one thing they're able to do with you that they weren't able to do before. Why they loved you so much, like what is the one thing that they just find super insightful about? And one question that I don't see anywhere else that I would really ask them, which is probably going to lead to the best insight, is what do you hate the most about our category? In your case would be about SaaS agencies. And go for it. Like, tell us everything that you hate about it. And it's really not a sales call, right? It's really about looking for patterns. And even though you feel you understand your clients and you know them well, I would still do that exercise if you haven't done it. And I would really, really ask this question about what do you hate the most about that category, because you can use that insight then to fuel your radical differentiation, which is really about trying to remove as much as you can from the perspective of what people hate and doubling down on what you love. So I'm going to repeat that for everyone else. Removing what people hate and doubling down on what they love. That means removing more than adding. That means really trimming down. And I feel like in your particular case, you could trim down further. And if you're afraid about the size of the market, that you're going too niche for a specific group of people, I would just do napkin calculations to calculate the market size and realizing that you can actually make a lot of money and a lot of impact if you go even.
So just to make sure I understand you correctly, you're kind
Sure.
of saying, so our niche is B2B SaaS, whatever, but you want to go into the psychographics, you want to go a deeper level within that. So it could be, we only work with certain level of funding, Series A stage, because we know they have more investment, they have a bigger marketing team, blah, blah, blah. And so basically figuring out what is the kind of just going a little bit deeper within the B2B SaaS effectively.
So it could be like B2B SaaS, CEOs of B2B SaaS that believe like in good marketing, or believe about customer first, or believe like what do they need to believe to truly take most advantage of your services? And therefore, if some of them believe something else, why shouldn't you work with them? Like, for example, a quick example here. If you mention growth hacking to me as a service, I will never hire you because I don't believe this is something that is valid as a discipline. I think it's just reinventing the wheel, for another name for good marketing. So, it's like, what can you find that is polarizing enough so that some of them will believe 100% and love you for that, and who would disagree? But unless you reach that point, everyone will be able to compare you with someone else that offer the same service. So this is the irrational spice. This little thing that could be something tiny as well. It could be from your uniqueness when you ask the question. They love something specific about you. Could be something really tiny. But by recognizing it, you can double down on it and even triple down on it and go all in with it. Like in Joe's case, the marketing meetup, his spice is it's lovely, like positively lovely, but it goes above and beyond the average for that. It is way too lovely for some, I would say, like really keen, really respectful, really nice always, and whatever. That's not for everyone. Some people prefer the funnel hacking, growth hacking, aggressive Gary Vaynerchuk,
Nathan Latkers of the world.
Exactly. But you see, you don't have to be just like, it's something that is too something for some.
Yeah.
Maybe you're too anal about numbers. Maybe you're just, and if you don't love numbers, you're not for me.
Yeah. Understood.
Does it make sense?
Yeah. Makes total sense.
As
is usual with this stuff, it just comes down to research. It comes down to truly understanding your customers, right?
So research and intuition. So your customers will not tell you everything. And it will be a mistake to just lean on logic to get there. Irrationality is so important. So when you look at a campaign that went crazy in the UK and elsewhere about compare the meerkat, instead of comparethemarket.com, where they went like into a Russian accent, I'm going to forget the name of the animal, meerkats. And they went all in with this irrational thing. And this is kind of what it takes, because it's a level field for everything else. Your market, the services you offer, it's going to have to be something spicy and irrational on top of it that makes it something that people will notice. And it doesn't have it won't be logical that much.
Yeah, understood.
I'll go deeper in the next few, with the next few people, and I think you'll get some extra value from that.
Thanks for taking the time. Much appreciated.
You're very welcome, man. All right, hold on. There we go. Jaymie.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning. So tell us who you are, what you do, and the specific challenge you submitted, please.
Certainly. So I'm Jaymie Thomas. I run a SaaS product called PayZip, and it's aimed at sports and hobby clubs, but specifically the treasurers and membership secretaries of those clubs. So we've definitely found our niche, but actually because it's applicable to any type of club that just needs to collect money, it's also quite generic. But so about our customer, they're volunteers. They're mixed audience. They can be male and female, mixed age, mixed ability. So sometimes they'll be complete amateurs to the role. Sometimes they're retired accountants. There's no sort of central watering hole for these people. So there's no sort of place I can really sort of go target them and find a lot of them, maybe Facebook. But the challenges I've got, other than that, are that we're a small team. We're a team of 4, and I'm responsible for the marketing. So it's essentially me. And it's really had to stand out and catch their eye, because even though there are a number of competitors for our service, they don't all do exactly what we do, but it's quite bland marketing in the sector. So I feel like it could be easy if I found the right approach.
Okay.
But there's quite a lot of competition, but everyone seems to be doing the same sort of thing.
Okay. So a lot to unpack here, and thank you for submitting this. You mentioned something in your application, which I wanted to double down on. You said, how do we be noticed without offending and remaining professional? Right?
Yes.
I want to mention something about being professional and what it actually means to be professional. And so if you have children listening to this, please tell them to go away for a bit. So I used to work for a professional place that called themselves professional. White males in suits, right? Mm-hmm. They made misogynistic jokes every day. They did coke in the bathroom, right? They did other stuff, and they called themselves professional, right? Professional is being respectful about others, right? It's about not considering anyone above anyone else. It's about helping others and lifting each other up and helping others, like giving value as much as we can, right? That's what I consider professional. And so usually when I hear how do we stand out and remain professional, I hear how do we stand out and not take any risk and do like everyone else. You can remain professional without wearing a suit. You can remain professional by swearing a bit. You can remain professional as long as you're there to serve others, right? So the challenge for you is you can't stand out and then stay attached to this, like doing like everyone else, because that's the pool, that's the average, that's where everyone brings you. You must lean on what others are doing and find a way to do it differently. So the actual very practical exercise I would give you is to list down what those direct competitors are typically doing in the space. So literally like make the list and go very, very narrow, like very thoroughly into that. So what do they say? Where are they? How does their website look like? What color do they use? What type of vocabulary do they use? What type of words do they use? And then I would do the opposite. What are they not doing? And that's such a difficult question to answer, because humans are kind of prone to seeing what is there, but not what is not. Look at what the gaps are in terms of like the channels they are, the things they say and don't say, the product they offer and whatnot. And you will find gaps, right? The other thing I would really advise you to do is look at companies and brands that you admire at completely outside of your industry, like far, 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 far away from your industry, and list down what they do, what they don't do. List the things that they tend to say and not say. And you'll realize that there's a lot of opportunities. But if you just look at the thing they do, you'll feel stuck. So it's really about that. It's really about listing down things first and looking for opportunities, right? So that's the first thing. I'll stop here and then I have something else for you. Do you have any questions on this?
No, not on that. We'll come back to something else I was thinking about.
Okay. So that's the first thing about the professional bit, right? It's really about understanding the source of their pain, understanding this trigger, understanding the alternatives that they're currently using right now. If I'm not mistaken, I looked at your website and I'm not sure you're mentioning the things they're currently doing without the solution. I think it's mentioned, but you could double down on it, like leaning on the status quo. It's trying to make people act and to make really people connect with your solution is really trying to find the source of their pain. What is causing pain right now that make them so compelled to find a solution? What is the reason why they are in pain? And it's not about direct competitors. It's about the thing they're currently using, the habits that they're currently having. You know, are they all using Excel, which is usually the competitive alternative by choice? Are they all doing things by hand? You know, how can you lean on the status quo by telling them there's something better out there? So that's what I had on that specific thing. So you had something else, so tell me.
Yeah, it was sort of related to the professionalism point. So I'm quite attracted personally to being a little bit sweary in marketing because it's different. But I think my point around our audience was because they're so diverse. How do you do that without offending people, or do you just accept the risk that you are going to offend? But the ones who latch onto it, you then draw to you. So not just swearing for swearing's sake, obviously, but to make a point.
So swearing is a very, very specific way and direction to go. Some people would say that I'm too aggressive, too sweary, like it's not for them. But that's not at all what you have to mimic, right? Mimicking the behavior of brands that you admire, you'll see other ways to be too something and to go in a direction that most others are not willing to do. Just to give Joe example again, he doesn't swear. He's not at all like me in personality-wise. We get along very well because we believe the same thing, but he's in a completely other direction, right? So when you reverse engineer other brands and the way they actually stand out, you realize that there is way more adjectives you can go for. And it just has to be one. You're too something. What is that too something? What is that direction that you want to go all in? And that's the key. It's not really about what you're choosing. It's more about how far are you going to go with that idea. Because if you go 20%, 50% on the way, it's not enough. Clutter is everywhere. No one will notice if you just do a 50% there. So go all the way in. And usually this ingredient is found already in your customer list. When talking to them, I would really advise you to do the advice that I just gave Todd and Kacem even, to try to identify that nugget, this uniqueness maybe that they like about you, the thing they hate about the category in general. And there will be one thing that just gives you energy that you feel like, yeah, that's interesting. Go for it all in 100% in your campaigns, in your one message, in your website, everywhere. Like there's no room to try two things. It's all in one direction because you're limited in resources. So you need to take a bet and go for it like full force. And if you feel like it's risky and you have butterfly in your stomach, then this is the right thing to do.
Excellent, thank you. I think with the swearing thing also, like you said, it's best to go all in because otherwise you just come across as inauthentic anyway.
Exactly. I mean, it needs to be an intersection of you, who you are as a person, who you are as a founding team, and whatnot. And yes, you might offend people, but the market is big enough for all of you. And I'm seeing in the chat, swearing doesn't work in all industry. I would beg to differ. It fucking works everywhere because you will offend some, and some people will be compelled to love you. But it's like, it's the way it is in today's world. If you try to please everyone, it won't work. You need to double down on one thing. And you need to realize when you do your calculation in terms of how much revenue do you need, that you don't need like 50% of the market, 20% of the market. Sometimes you need 0.1% of it, and you can make a very, very good living. And this is the key. In today's clutter, it's just, there's no room for anything but all in one direction.
Great, thank you very much.
You're welcome, and best of luck with it. I think you have all the ingredients, honestly. I mean, the rest already, like the niching down, the good software. It's just about like this last sprint.
Excellent, thanks, Louis.
You're welcome. All right. Hannah, Silverstein. And thanks, Joe, by the way. You're really, really good at bringing everyone, like, it's so smooth.
No worries, my friend.
Bonjour, Hannah.
Hi, how you doing?
Great to talk to you. I don't think I've ever talked to you video.
No, not at all. Lovely to meet you virtually, I suppose.
I know. So tell us who you are, what you do, and the specific challenge you submitted, please.
So I'm head of brand and marketing at a snacks company called Marvin's, and we've recently done a full rebrand. I started with the company in February, so really, really new, and it's been a full overhaul of everything, branding and marketing, because there was next to nothing going on before before I joined. So really small company, only been going for 3 years. The issue that I've got is that we have an incredibly unique product, but we're having problems identifying our target audience. By we, I mean there's a huge discrepancy between what I believe our target audience should be and what my boss believes the target audience should be. That's for 3 main reasons. First one is it's snacks, so they've got a very huge mass appeal. The second one is our current audience. So we've got a database of about 1,500 people, of people who have purchased before, is currently skewed based on the fact that the previous marketing, that their main piece of marketing was an advert in the Daily Mail. And the third issue is that the products are quite clearly positioned in terms of the product ranges, but the brand itself doesn't have a direct target market. So,
okay.
Yeah.
And you want me to answer all of that in 8 minutes? Okay.
No,
very
not
nice. Very nice of you.
Faceted,
No, we can make some progress here. So thanks so much for submitting this and well done on your new job. So you ask in your submission, and I'm quoting, why the fuck should anyone care about snacks? Right?
Yeah, I did.
It's a fair point, right? It's like we're not selling B2B software like that will save you millions. Like it's just something people don't even think about and whatnot.
A small commitment product, yeah.
Yeah. So as you know, like people care about one thing, which is themselves, and there will be a reason why people buy it. It's a mixture of mental availability, physical availability, like it's available in front of them, on shops and whatever. I'm actually quite worried about the fact that you're not allowed.
I'm not what, sorry?
That you're not allowed to talk to customers, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. That's
so I don't really think it's an issue that people came from an ad in the Daily Mail. Daily Mail might have its shortcoming or whatever, but I don't think you should overly think about that. And we need to lean on something. There's 2 ways you can get good data. One is to interview customers of yours, and the other one is to interview customers of direct competitors. There is 2 ways to get on board. To get your boss on board, it's either you ask for permission, you don't ask for permission, you ask for forgiveness later, and you do it on your own, or you do your best to bring her into one interview. On one way, you do a kind of an approach where I don't know if you're allowed to do it where you are, but you bring some customers in the office and make them explain why they bought, what was the trigger or the set of triggers. Why did they feel the need to buy your snacks? Because if I remember, it's like healthy snack. There's something about it. You need to start with a very tiny audience of people who really can't wait to try that snack for whatever reason. Could be because they are like athletes who still want to indulge themselves in like snacking, but they can't. You will find patterns there. And it goes back to the advice I gave before: access, joy, pain, and money. Like, what is the pain, what is the bleeding neck that makes them pick your brand, which is fairly new, as opposed to all of the other massive brands that are very well known? Like, there is a reason why they went for it. And usually in your category, in where you are right now in the progress of the company, it's all about innovators and early adopters. People who are willing to take a leap of faith into trying a new product because it's novel, because they can talk about it to their friends, because they can feel like, they've tried something and their status will grow compared to the group. Those are the people you want to go after first. If you try to go like full market straight away, you will lose because you won't be able to lean on the momentum and the social proof. So there are early adopters out there who can't wait to try your thing, but you need to find the commonality. Like there is a reason why they bought it, or else the pool to try and to just use any other brands is too strong. So there is a reason why. So I would absolutely start super, super small. Just a quick example, not in your industry. I worked with a client recently that sold organic shampoo to Latinas. That was their original target audience. We did interviews, we did other type of research. We realized that there was one core commonality between all of those, like 95% of them who bought. They are not just all Latinas in the US. They were Latina women with long curly hair living in California and Florida. Long curly hair because those needed to control their hair way more than the rest, like something that is actually a much bigger pain than women with short hair. The other thing was the humid weather of Florida and California, which created this extra pain right? Made it very difficult to control. They went all in with that direction, that single message, a single positioning, and they've tripled their sales, like literally tripled their sales thanks to this single message. But it was hidden in plain sight. And it's going to be the same for you, I can guarantee it. Those are early adopters then. So it's a mixture of this pain, but also people are willing to try something new. Once you have enough of them, then the momentum will start gathering and you can go to the next step. But I would really go back to this thing about asking for forgiveness, not permission. As a marketer, you're not just there to communicate, you're there to like influence the product, the price, the promotion, and the place, right? That's what marketing is all about. So I would really try to do your best to say, hey, like, I can't do my job without it. And the last thing I would say about the reticence for interviews is that most people think people don't know what they want, right? The famous Henry Ford quote, if I had asked customers what they wanted, they would have built faster horses. We would have built faster horses. So this is bullshit for two reasons. One, this quote has never been said by Henry Ford. And two, when you do customer interview, you don't ask people what they want. You ask people what they went through, their past experience. You ask people to recall past events. You don't ask them to make up a new product for you. And that's critical to understand. Customer interviews are not there for you to like predict the future. They're here like an investigator in a crime scene to look at proofs and evidence, and then obviously use your intuition to draw the line to understand what happened.
Okay, great.
Does it make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've had permission to speak to our most loyal of customers. So there's a list of 20 people who have spent hundreds and hundreds of pounds of snacks. And I did speak to 5 of them to get their kind of experience before it was kind of cut. But perhaps digging deeper into the list of people and asking beyond those 5. Those 5.
So when I was talking to Todd earlier on, I mentioned a few questions, right? So I would go back to that and trying to paint the journey from the very first time they ever thought about buying a snack like that, like what happened. And the reason why they spend hundreds of pounds into this snack, trust me, is not just because they want to give you money and they like your branding. There is a reason behind it. Once you nail that target market, that small target market, things will become so much easier. You can start from there. You can like use the beachhead strategy that is mentioned by Geoffrey Moore in his book, and I'm going to forget the name, that talk about the early adopter and the innovation curve. And once you have that enough money and resource, you can grow that market slowly, and then becoming like a massive company. But you can't just go like there without that single information. And that's the critical piece that people seem to miss when it comes to differentiation and standing out. You can't take an average product that is for everyone and make it stand out. It's just impossible. You have to start with a tiny market, and the tiny could be worth millions, that really can't wait to buy your snack for this specific reason. You need to find that pattern. I think you need to dig deeper.
Great. Thank you ever so much for your time. Appreciate it.
You're so welcome. Thanks for the challenge. Rebecca.
Bonjour, bonjour, Louis and Joe.
Hey,
hi from Cambridge. My name's Rebecca Orde, and I'm not a marketing pro. My startup company provides project management in the built environment, meaning that I help people renovate their homes, taking away all the stress of building work and all that entails. My specialist subject is future-proofing homes for older people and adapting homes for disabled people of all ages. So I do this by collaborating and connecting with industry specialists, clever design like the Royal College of Art, smart home technology, and innovative products like Japanese loos, which Rory Sutherland and I are massive fans of. So the global aging markets and disabled markets are huge, with increasing spending power, and yet they're both extremely complex, and solutions are often clumsy, mediocre, or just plain bad design. So what they both desire is as much independence as possible with dignity, but also with style. Marketing to these sectors is however difficult, often due to using the right language and various stigma. For example, people in later life don't want to identify themselves as old, and therefore they resist buying products or services that reinforce that notion until it often becomes a necessity or a life-changing event. So it's reactive, or what they call stress purchase. So, Louis, Can you
Yes.
help me with some ideas to how to disrupt the status quo and address these markets individually or ideally collectively under the banner of independent living?
Yeah, again, 8 minutes for this. Okay. So first, I wanted to applaud you for what you're doing. I love your website as well. I would recommend everyone to check it out. I love the pictures, very like professional, and you're clearly passionate about what you do. And that's why I kind of picked you. I love people who are obsessed over like stuff that are just seemingly crazy or original, like Japanese loos and stuff. I mean, you'd argue that in Japan, it's not crazy at all. Everyone, like it's everywhere, right? So it's funny. I actually, part of I have a program where I teach what we do right now. And one of them was a VP of marketing for senior living facilities in Canada. And they did their research to understand what makes people, seek such a place. What's the trigger, or the set of triggers that make them just say, enough is enough. And usually it's because of an ailment or like something happened in their life, like an injury that make them, seek something. And as you said, it's reactive. Humans are this way though. Humans can't think about the future that much. And so it's really about these kind of elements. The other one that was really interesting was their family visited their house, realizing that they can't live like this anymore. So clearly there is an issue here about their independence, and clearly they need help. So there might be something here. But the reason why I know this is because they did their research and they understand that. So I don't know if you can fight human nature, meaning the people who will be interested in what you do are people who had this trigger about to happen or just happened, and they need to make a change. The future, though, is investing in stuff like content marketing and whatever, where you prepare some others who are not ready to buy just yet or haven't experienced those triggers, but are about to realize that they might need something quite soon. So you can lean on social proof and all of that to do this. But overall, the reason why I wanted to really talk to you is because you need to attract people who believe what you already believe. And there will be a ton of them already. I don't think it's easy, and I think it's not even, I don't think it's a fact that it's not easy at all to try to change people's mind and force them to think something else. I mean, I'm not going to mention actual events about vaccines and stuff like that, but the more you try to go against what someone believes, the more they will be entrenched about that belief, right? So the key really, and I think it's more than enough for you to make good money and good impact, is to focus on people who already believe what you believe. I saw in the chat a lot of people who said, oh, I love Japanese loos and stuff like that. So even people who don't necessarily, who would be older adults and disabled, they could be early adopters in their own right, And so it's really about those people who are seeking to change something because they're really in pain, but also because they see themselves as quite the innovator. They love trying something new, and I'm pretty sure you'll find them. So people are very, very good at maintaining their existing point of view, right? And it gets worse when you confront them. For the ambivalent, the ones who are not too sure about that technology, start with what they want and need. So even if they haven't considered Japanese loos and solutions like that, start with their pain, right? Start with what I mentioned, the ailment, the fact that the family visited. Speak their language by talking to them as well to understand the journey. The customers already bought from you. Why did they buy from you? What words are they using? That's one of the easiest things to do for you, to really talk their language, is to literally use their language. When you interview them, you get transcript, you reuse those words exactly, and you can really form an entire landing page and website and brochures just using the words that they use, instead of just putting your marketing hat on and trying to come up with catchy point of view and phrases. So content marketing is another thing. That's why it's so powerful, is because you basically allow people to come up with their own triggers as they start searching. So maybe that's an option there. And then let them create their own options, something that works really well, to avoid forcing people into and pigeonhole someone into an option, to force them to say, no, Japanese loos is the only answer. You let them create their own options by maybe giving them an audit or a quiz, somewhere where they can input their own information and personal problems and challenges and situation and context, and make them realize, well, based on what you told me, this is the best option for you. Mm-hmm. Based on what you told me, actually Japanese loos is not for you at all. So you make them come up with their own conclusions, and you're just the facilitator. You're not the person trying to convince them. You let them convince themselves.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pause here for a sec if you have anything on what I said.
No, I think that makes absolute total sense. And content marketing is something that is very much sort of in progress at the moment. And I'm also working very closely with a couple of people who have that lived experience. So obviously understand the language. Martin Sibley, who I met thanks to Joe, and Ross Hovey, who advises Lloyd's Banking Group, both of whom have SMA or in a wheelchair. So nice. That's really helped me. So it's not just me saying this is what I think, it's actually what people themselves who are disabled or older people as well.
And the last thing I would say is it's going to be completely wild comparison, but hippopotamus, the word hippopotamus comes from ancient Greek that says river horse. Okay. And so what I mean by this is that people lean on what they already know to describe things. And so maybe I would try to reposition some of the products that are difficult for people to get their head around differently. Maybe people don't want Japanese loose because it feels a bit whatever, but maybe they want, it's not the best for sure, but like innovative loose, or, you know, something that is just, you lean on something they already know and accept in their life. Yeah. And you add a sprinkle to it that makes it, you know, okay, I know that, but it's just the next step after that. It's not just something completely new.
No, that's great. Really, really good advice. Thank you so much, Louis.
And you're welcome. And then I wanted to say something else to you, but I'm going to forget. It's going to come to me in a few minutes, so I'll call you back. But thanks so much for your challenge and very interesting product. So best of luck with it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Jimmy.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
We can hear you and we can see you. Beautiful beard.
Hey Joe, Louis. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Do you put lotion on it, or what do you do?
I mean, yeah, a little moisturization goes a long way, right?
I can see that. Beautiful skin. All
Thank
right,
you, sir.
So tell us what you do and your specific challenge that you submitted, please.
Yes. So yeah, hi everyone. My name is Jimmy, and I've recently joined a company called Tame about a month and a half ago, and they are in the virtual event space. And as you can imagine, so the company's been around for about 5 years now, but because of COVID, just like many others, they've had to kind of transform their product to adopt it to the new reality so that it entered that new space called the virtual event space. And my challenge revolves around messaging and how to convey practically the same business benefits like everybody else in that space, independent of the market share, but obviously in a way that's very different, both in terms of how it's verbally expressed, but also visually shown throughout any brand interaction.
What's the market share of the company roughly, if you can share in the category?
It's tiny. It's probably not existent right now, okay. Specifically in the UK market that we're trying to penetrate right now.
Okay, so thanks for submitting this. So every industry, every category where there's money is noisy by default, right? I mean, that's a fact of life. Any industry you're going to join later on, it's going to be the same. So we need to deal with it for sure. So if you consider the clutter of direct competitors, then you add to that competitive alternatives, like things that could replace what you do. And then all of the other companies that try to get the attention of your market that have nothing to do with you, right? So we need to do something different. So here is the radical differentiation formula. And so everyone, and not only you, but everyone should really pay attention to this. It's saying that we are the only whatever in that category that does that specific thing, like that specific value for that specific market. The intersection of the three elements makes you the only, right? But you cannot expect to be radically different with the large market that everyone else is going after. So I think all of the advice I gave earlier is very valid to you. I would be very, very, very curious to know, out of the customers you've got already and customers of direct competitors, what are the triggers, what are the pains, what do they have in common that you could take advantage of? So the key question to ask yourself is, are there any differences in the market you could take advantage of? Are customers in your industry underserved in one way, shape, or form? Are they underserved by competitive alternatives, or direct competitors for a specific reason? And if so, why are they underserved? Why do they feel it's not quite working for them? And that is such an important question to ask. And you can't really just come up with it yourself. You definitely need to lean on customer research, like specifically interviews or surveys, asking those questions, but also looking at direct competitors and trying to find, okay, who can we focus on where we can be the only people offering that specific thing for that group? And that comes from being underserved in one way, shape, or form. So maybe you can tell me a bit about it. Like, have you come across customers that says, yeah, you're the only one doing that? Like, are you doing something slightly different? Tell me more.
Yeah, definitely. So first of all, I'm lucky enough to work with founders that firmly believe that a strategy is something that needs to you need to spend time on, and marketing plays a huge role in helping with that process. So I've had the chance to interview a few customers already, and unfortunately, fortunately, they became customers a little bit earlier, or very early in the process of that transition. So right now, at the time, there were not that many alternatives. And within the past year and a half or so, there have been so many companies that have popped up, and a market leader has formed because of investment and because of where they are in the world. We're based out of Denmark, so not the biggest country, and not it doesn't bring too much attention to. Yes, having spoken to those customers, they're kind of going over their process of how they found us and why they chose us. It was mostly because of the lack of alternatives at the time. And there were a few of those customers were actually local customers that actually valued the fact that we are a Danish-based company. Okay. And to them, that was very valuable because they perceived that as, getting localized support, timely support as well. So that part was hugely important to them.
But obviously, you don't want to stay just in Denmark, right?
Exactly.
All right. So definitely, it seems like you need to look at deeply into the customer insight to find patterns. And again, it's really about narrowing down your market so that you can dominate that market and reach more than 50% market share in that specific market. For that year only, like when I talk about all of this, by the way, it's only like 6 months, 1 year, 18 months top in terms of go-to-market strategy. But you must start small enough so that you can become the go-to solution for that market in that category because they're underserved in one way, shape, or form. Then once you have that, you can use the money you're making to expand to other markets or doubling down on the market. But time and time again, what I see about differentiation, the problem that I see is this lack of understanding that you can't just take all the category and say, let's get them all without this kind of differentiation, because you need to go after this small group. So ask the same question: what do they hate the most about that category? Why did they pick you? What is the uniqueness? And drill down into that. How can you focus on this underserved part of the market? And there will be one. There's always one, right? Just a quick example. I interviewed Adele Revala on the podcast like 2 years ago, and I know Adele, who's the CEO of the Biopersona Institute, was on the marketing meetup before. And she told me this story about this antivirus company they did research for. Not antivirus, accounting software. And they were in a pickle as well, same realization. They had a large market, they didn't know where to focus on. They did their interviews, they did their research, they used their intuition as well. They realized that there was one group particularly that was so keen on buying from them, that loved them. And the reason why that small group was so keen is because they were afraid of going to jail. They were small business owners who didn't have accounting departments on their own. And they were afraid that if they didn't file their taxes properly, they'll go to jail, literally. So they used that single insight and doubled down on it to own that smaller market. They dominated it, and then the rest is history, right? So I wish I could tell you straight away, this is it. But you need to really go deep in terms of research, in terms of intuition, looking at the type of things that people could look at that could be underserved in one way, shape, or form, and then double down on it. That means saying no to the rest. That's so important. You can't just go 20% there and say, well, let's start with that market, but by the way, we're going to keep everyone else. We're going to just try to target everyone else. No, it's start with that group, and then you'll see things will get much easier. And by the way, that's not me saying it. Like, I'm merely standing on the shoulders of giants here. like Seth Godin and Geoffrey Moore and all of the, I'm not going to like name drop, but everyone talking about marketing strategy, go to market startups talking about the same way, like start small, expand later.
Yeah, sounds brilliant. Thank you.
You're welcome, man. Best of luck with it.
Thank you, sir.
I love the category that is emerging thanks to COVID, or because of COVID, but also thanks to it. It's interesting. So thank you.
Thanks, my pleasure.
All right, let me just drink a bit, Devi, and then I'll come to you. Welcome.
All right. Merci. Bonjour. Hi, Joe.
Bonjour. So tell us who you are, what you do, and the specific challenge you submitted.
So I'm Devi, the co-founder of a wellness snack brand, which inspires conscious snacking with an ancient superseed, the water lily seeds, used in Ayurveda for centuries. And we launched 3 years back. We went on the market, like doing direct to consumer on live events such as markets and events around the UK and France. And we targeted the vegan gluten-free market first. Then we took this audience online also. So we had a mix of offline and online. And so as we use an Ayurvedic seeds, we tend also to promote well-being, like our tagline is conscious snacking. So now after 3 years, we are more also focusing on promoting the well-being side of our business. And at some point, even we would like to do a live event on well-being side, or like promoting mindfulness events, such things like this. And also behind this brand, we are 2 French sisters. And so yeah, sometimes
I saw your pictures on the website, really cool.
Thanks. So yeah, it's a question of where to focus our message. Yeah, vive la France.
Vive la France. Yeah, so how to focus your message, right? What do you say and what do you not say?
Yeah.
So thanks for submitting this. There are 4 great filters in marketing. It's about, first, you need to be noticed. If you don't get noticed, nothing happens. Then you need to be remembered, but it's not enough. You then need to be remembered in buying situations, meaning when they think of snack, they think of you. And then you need to be talked about with others, right? The 4 great filters. So be noticed, be remembered in buying situations, and then be talked about, be shared, all right? The first clear layer for you is to be noticed first and foremost. I would obsess over that in one way, shape, or form. So I said that earlier. I'm not going to repeat my advice on target market, the interviews you need to do, the research you need to do, doubling down on that. But the top layer here to be noticed is, and I know Joe had Rory Sutherland on the thing earlier with his book Alchemy, and he talks about it a lot. You need to be irrational in one dimension. It needs to be something that is too absurd, too illogical, too costly, too inefficient, too difficult, too aggressive, too something, too cheesy, to whatever, right? It needs to be something that trickles down everywhere into the funnel, like from start to finish. It needs to be something that people notice and remember you from. And it doesn't have to be something that makes sense logically, meaning, when I talk about comparethemeerkat.com as the campaign, I know someone that just said they wanted me to say it again, so there I did. It makes no sense. It doesn't. Russian accent meerkat connects at nothing with financial market, right? So it needs to be something that people just notice because it's actually different on purpose. That's called the von Restov effect, which shows that when you show similar things on one thing that is completely different, people will notice the thing that is completely different. And it makes sense, right? But it's so difficult for people to do. So my advice would be, is there something from your company, your story, that people seem to notice more than the rest? Do they seem to care a lot about the fact that you're 2 sisters from France? Do they seem to care about something else, or just notice that, And if so, I would double down, triple down on it, and all in one way, shape, or form. Now, the health benefits kind of could appear within it. Like you can make sure that this story connects, but above all else, if you don't get noticed in such a crowded category, it's going to be difficult. So it's that thing. So maybe I can ask you, like, is there something from like your 3 years history so far? Something
for sure, the fact that we are French the franchise side. So that's why also on our new packaging that we launched in March, we use the characters for the flavors, but they all have a striped top, and yeah. So I think we should, yeah, it's a good idea actually to push the fact that we had 2 French sisters, and that and then everything comes from that, and then we love traveling. The 2 sisters will love traveling and went around the world.
And it's your story, right? It connects because with the early adopters and the small group of people that you need to go for to get a steam, this is what people would notice and talk about. Like, oh yeah, I'm trying the snacks. It's actually made from with 2 French sisters that they did that for whatever. So there's a reason why I say bonjour, bonjour everywhere I go.
Yeah.
Because I play on it on purpose. I know people notice that. Now, it's not the only thing. It needs to be congruent with the rest, right? You need to make sure that it's congruent. But those are the things that I would absolutely triple down on, because you're so in the weeds, you don't necessarily see the actual thing that people notice. And to make sure that people notice that, you need to remove as much as you can from elsewhere. Meaning you can't talk about 3 different things on the homepage or on your campaigns. It needs to be one thing, So it makes me think, actually, there is a good, I'm trying to find it. It's not there. Oh, yes, it is. There's a resource called the Positioning Roulette that is created by a guy I had on my podcast years ago called Uli Applebaum. And it's like that set of cards.
Okay.
And it's actually quite fun to go through. It's basically a set of ideas that you can go through for your message. He calls it positioning roulette, but I would say positioning is deeper, is the company and whatever. It's more like for a campaign or for the message. It talks about stuff like identify an enemy or use shared value, dramatize the benefits, identify the brand's archetype. Basically, all of them can be used as one direction. So I would suggest maybe to play with that and to go one step further. But if people notice that about you and that story, go all in with it.
All in. Okay.
Triple down on it. And then connect it with maybe the health and whatever, but that comes with your target market again. Doubling down on health, it makes probably sense to understand those customers, what make them buy from a new company like yours instead of the big giants in the market. There must be a very good reason, and I would triple down on that.
Nice. Excellent.
Does it make sense?
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Thanks.
Best of luck with it, and I'm rooting for you.
So thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you. Louis, so we do not have Charlotte. So
no worries. I can mention that thing. So that would have been the last challenge. By the way, please add your question there. I want to make sure I answer all of them. And we agreed with Joe that I'll spend as much time as needed to answer all of your questions. I know it's a very tricky subject. I know some of you are like a single, like solopreneur, consultant. I know it could be tough to make ends meet and whatnot. So I want to make sure I answer your question as much as I can to help you as much as I can. So the last thing I want to say here, we talked about radical differentiation and the formula being we are the only in that category that does that thing, that value for that group of people. This works really well when you take your spacecraft to orbit, trying to bring it to orbit, meaning you need a strong force to put it off the ground and to resist Earth's gravity until you kind of sail off into the edge of space. And then it's actually super easy. You don't even need your engine. What I mean by this is that radical differentiation is the engine to get you off the ground. Once you reach a certain stage, let's say you're market leader in a space, you literally have like more than 50% market share in that space. Radical differentiation doesn't really matter as much as distinctiveness and share of voice, meaning once you have that formula, you don't really obsess over being different in every dimension and trying to find a tiny group of people. What you need to do is access share of voice, being seen, reaching as many people as you can, because that's the force that will bring you around the earth over and over again. So that's advice that we all gave, like that we discussed today, and the radical differentiation works extremely, extremely well if you're a solopreneur, an agency, a startup, and you want to really get off the ground in the first few years and like make a dent. But once you become an official brand, after 5, 6, 7 years, when you reach a few millions, this advice doesn't work as well. And it's really about mental availability, physical availability. I would really advise everyone to read How Brands Grow by Baron Sharp and Jenny Romaniuk on this topic. And the forces are very different. So I don't want to give advice that are just blanket advice that feels like it's for everyone. It's definitely not for you if you're a market leader already. I wouldn't do that. But if it's time to develop a new product because you see things are stagnating, then you need to go back on Earth and build that new spacecraft. Then it's all about doing that thing all over again.
Love it. Thank you, Louis. It's been phenomenal. The comments have been just so lovely, mate. And like, obviously we're going to take the time to answer the questions now. So it's not over, but I mean, thank you for that. That was a phenomenal effort. So thank you, my friend.
You're welcome.
People have got so much from it. There's a bunch of questions here, and not everyone has said that they're happy to talk at the end of it. So I'm going to maybe ask the first one from May, but then if Jackie, Rachel, Daniel, Mike want to pop in that you're still happy to speak in the chat, then we can get you up afterwards. Okay, well, we've got May up here who said that she's happy to chat, so let's do that right now. Let's promote May to the panelist.
And thanks, Joe, for being so quick on bringing everyone on. I think it's the first time it's going so smooth today.
I'm very happy to be the glamorous assistant today. It's been fun, mate. You absolutely smashed it. It's been a lot of fun. And May, welcome.
Hey, May.
Hi. Yeah, I feel like a celebrity being on the panel.
There you are.
Watch so many people. It's a bit surreal to be on it. So yeah, my question is, when we were talking earlier about digital agencies and the SASS, you were saying find these specific people, and we were talking about that very niche people that you would target. Is there a risk there that you're going to just go to direct competitors and then you put yourself in an awkward situation where you're kind of marketing against yourself?
I'm not sure I understand. So you mean, okay, I'm not sure I understand. Can you repeat for me, please? And be patient with me as well, because I'm a bit brain dead now.
I mean, I'll apply it to my situation. So I do video production and video advertising, and I work with a lot of hotels. Yeah. And sometimes it's a great tool to show them this is what we do. And other ones, they're like, we don't want the exact same thing that every other hotel is doing. Even if we tailor it to different brands and things like that, we find it hard to. We say this is something we do, this is something we're very good at, but sometimes because we're working with their competitors, they don't want us to work with them.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So vertical positioning, meaning you cannibalize, you basically, okay, I get you. So you work for, let's say your positioning is vertical, meaning you go after a specific vertical, let's say hospitals, hotels only, and they don't want to work just with you. They want to work with you because you basically work with our competitors.
Yeah.
So there's two ways around that problem. One is to say, cop on, right? The market is competitive by all means. We're not going to share trade secrets here. It's really about obsessing over customers, and we follow this framework, and that's how we are the best in the world at. I know a lot of, there's so many consultants and experts who specialize in one vertical and are making a lot of money with it. I would say try to avoid companies who feel like they're competing against all their competitors and they can't give their secrets, because let's face it, there is not really any secret in this world about this specific, any industry. I mean, so maybe that's a signal for you to say, maybe we shouldn't work with them. Now, I understand from your perspective, you need maybe to make ends meet, and it's not as easy to say no. Then I would maybe consider a mix of horizontal and vertical positioning where you can, you have your video production, but I will really double down on something else that makes it more difficult to work with you, so that they don't feel like necessarily direct competitors because they're not necessarily in the same space, right? So the internet is a beautiful thing. You can really, if you specialize in hotel and hospitality, you can potentially have people from all over the world that you help, not just in the UK or whatever. So trying to expand that field, but narrowing down the criteria, meaning that your target market becomes international, and it's way less likely that people will say, we are a hotel based in the UK, we don't want you to share secrets with this hotel in Cambodia.
Yeah, sounds good. We used to do loads across Asia until COVID, and then we had to sort of translate that to the UK. So that was quite an interesting thing. And then when we did one, that's when we started running into a little UK battle of, you've worked with them.
Yeah, I mean, does that come up very often?
Not massively, but it's just something when it does happen, I don't feel like I have an answer for it.
Yeah, so definitely I would try to like get the upper hand again and say, hey, you know, the world is what it is. It's a capitalist world out there. Everyone and all the information is shared for free. We specialize in hotel. That means we are the best in the world at what we do. It means that we know all the trade secrets. And if you don't want us to work with competitors, we can't work with you either. Because at the end of the day, what makes the difference is you, what you offer, your location. And I think I would use it as a signal as a good fit client, because I would argue that the good clients are the ones who don't care about that.
Yeah.
Who knows it's a positive sum. It's not a zero-sum game. You don't take away from another hotel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does it make sense?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
You're welcome. Sorry, I'm improvising here. I don't have notes on your stuff, so it's not going to be as compelling.
No, that was really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, May. Appreciate it. We've got next up, we've got Rachel.
Rachel. Bonjour, bonjour. If you can unmute yourself. There you're muted. There
Sorry, it reloaded and changed my settings. Hi, thank you very much for having me on. Yes, my question is, my company is nearly 6 years old, and I spent half of that time really thinking, oh, I wish I was working with bigger clients and bigger companies, until I had a bit of mentoring and CMO.
You're breaking up, Rachel.
Let's
very respected person said to me, why?
Oh, sorry, Rachel, we lost you halfway through there, so
yeah,
would you mind starting again?
I think my office connection is unstable. Apologies.
You can remove your camera if you want.
Yeah, so I spent half the time. Okay. So I don't know where you got to, but I spent half the time thinking I needed bigger. You should embrace your expertise with small businesses and be the expert for companies under 5 years old. So my question is, when I redo my website and actually make it clearer that I focus on working with those smaller businesses, is that enough? How do I make the positioning strong enough to stand out and not be the same as other agencies that may be saying a similar thing?
Yeah. So how do you radically stand out with starting off with we're focusing on small businesses? So small businesses is probably one of the widest type of target market you can go after. It's so wide. So it's really about the intersection of those three things. You're the only whatever you do in that category that does that specific things for that group of people. So if you focus on small businesses, it means that the service you're going to offer and the category you're in is going to need to be super narrow to be able to claim the only. So it's either you are able to make such a sacrifice there to focus on this very tiny thing in a very tiny category, or you need to really narrow down your market by doing all the stuff I shared before, like the interview, the intuition, the looking at patterns, looking at the ones that are in pain, looking at the underserved market.
Okay, so essentially I've been advised to say, you know, we are the marketing agency for companies under 5 years old.
That's either in a local place?
That, you know, I can do those other things, I can use their language, etc. But
is it in a specific place?
Well, I mean, I'm happy to work with companies anyway.
Okay, so this is way too wide. You are opening up to competitors, to millions of competitors. Like marketing is such a wide thing. You can, are we talking positioning, paid media, SEO, organic content marketing? I could go on and on. Small business, what type of industry? So remember what I said earlier about satisficing. People pick the least risky option. When they compare you with a consultant or agency that specialize in their sector and that specific thing they need with you, they're going to pick the other because that's the least risky option, right? So this is, I would say, a start to narrow it slightly, but it's way too wide. So I would really encourage you to listen to the recording again when I talk about the market and whatnot, and you're going to need to make a take a risk, what feels like a risk, but it's not risky, to actually go narrow, or else it's going to be extremely difficult because you're literally opening up to competition from everywhere. Upwork, all the freelancer platform everywhere.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Best of luck with it.
Thank you, Rachel. Really appreciate it. Cool. So we've got a question from Jackie here, who can't come on screen. She's in a busy hotel lobby, so I will do this for her. So Jackie asks, can Louis talk about narrowing down your market versus narrowing down what the company offers? I'm a strategy and often think about if I should specialize in what I offer or I should offer what I do to a specialized / narrow audience.
So it's both. Meaning that you want a specific group of people who can't wait for your solution, but that solution needs to be narrow as well. So it's sometimes by design, the solution you offer is kind of unique to a group of people, and then only them understand it. Like, I don't know, just talk about Japanese loos. By definition, you might, if you sell those type of loos, you basically don't target everyone in the world because not everyone needs it and have this pain and whatnot. So it could be implied that the solution you offer is for that group. If you say that you offer a dentist CRM, it's kind of implied that who it's for and who it's not. So, but in the formula, the only company in that category that does that thing for that group, it's both. I haven't seen an example where you can reach differentiation with just a specific service. Now you can argue, some people sell their own methodology and their own framework and they trademark it and make it seem like it's the only that does that, but it's usually the same thing. They just add a little spin to it. So if you really want to take your spacecraft off gravity, Earth gravity, you need a really strong force, and that strong force comes from the both. But in the way you say it, it doesn't have to be explicitly said that you only for that, because sometimes it's implied. I hope that makes sense.
It does. Wicked. Thank you, mate. I'm going to try and get Hannah on screen and see if she accepts. She does. In the meantime, there's also a question, can we make this a monthly format? So, Louis, you're way too busy to make it monthly, but we can.
I didn't say that.
Mate, as much as you want to interact with the marketing meetup, you're very welcome to interact with the marketing meetup. So, but I mean, this is an opportunity actually to say that Louis got a ton of great stuff that he's doing as well, by the way. So you need to head to everyonehatesmarketers.com and check out all the courses. Louis will be launching your new cohort quite soon, right?
Yeah, in September. It's, the program is called Stand the Fuck Out. It's for 20 people only. And it's about basically 8 weeks of this. So imagine that, but every week with lessons and stuff. Anyway, Hannah, how are you?
Hello. It's
Hi.
That classic thing where I've been looking at you on an iPad and it's come on. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is such a bad angle. But anyway.
Don't be mean like that to yourself.
So my question was, like, I very much buy into your kind of niche and dominate thing, and I'm a fan of both you and Joe, as you know, secret little fan, super fan over here. But when I try and talk to clients around this thing, you hit a lot of fear against founder vision. Like, founder vision is always big and like, I want to like dominate the world. So there's often that thing about a feeling that you're going to limit growth. And, if you go too niche, what happens when you actually want to expand out of that sector? I think things like belief is quite safe, as in like a belief can give you a lot of room to do other things. But if you were niching on a certain I don't know, going after finance people or that kind of thing, you can start to become famous for something that you then can't get out of. So my question was kind of how you handle that kind of want. So I think it's right for a startup, but when do you think about diversification and how would you handle that? Like, when's the time when you kind of think I've saturated what I'm doing? And how do you fight the fear?
So it's something that is so common. It's the most common thing I hear, like this fear of going narrow and we might kill other opportunities. And what are we going to do? We want all to be billionaires, right? I mean, we all want to be millionaires. If we only focus in dentists, like, what the fuck are we going to do? So usually that's really from they are afraid of not making enough money and whatever. The advice that I'm giving here is temporary, meaning what you want to do is reach 50% plus market share in that specific market for that service. Once you have enough resources, then you can expand. You can go to other markets who might need this, or you can double down on that. Like if you offer a CRM specifically for dentists and you realize they need a lot of stuff, then you double down on that group. I would argue that sometimes it's a safer option because you already know that group and you can expand inside that community that you've already made processing. But like there is basically, it's a dance between the vision and the long-term future and the reality of today. In today's world, you need to survive, make money, make ends meet, and then you can think of the rest. So it's really about what is the first step towards that vision. And if you go too far, trying to like take your spacecraft all the way to like to the stratosphere without considering health of the people inside, you're gonna all die because you're gonna get like 200 G's of force to try to take off. So things take time, you know. Things take time to reach the early adopters, to reach the early majority, the late majority. Things take time. That's all it is. And if you can nail that positioning, that differentiation for the next year and gather market share and gather steam, momentum, then by all means, then execute on your vision in the next few years. But I challenge everyone without billions of funding to tell me a story of a company that didn't start this way. And I'm sorry to use this overused example of Facebook, for example, that started with Mark Zuckerberg, who wanted to just get access of other girls in his campus contact details and started a yearbook, and then started with universities and then grew from that. Like I challenge anyone to find another example. Red Bull is another one. They focused solely at the start on Austrians who had money and who were hanging out in ski resorts because they knew like that was the place to be for young Australians who needed this energy in nightclubs. They only focused on that. Now they are a massive media company, but they started this way as well. Like the world is littered with examples of big companies that started small because you can't start anywhere else. That's how humans are. You need, remember the 4 filters, like be noticed, be remembered in buying situations, and be talked about. You can't hack that process. You can't hack physiology and psychology. So you need to like pace yourself and understand that there is a dance to have between your long-term vision that you need to actually keep in mind, but also the reality of today.
Thanks. I just need to bottle you and bring you to my meetings.
Yeah, no problem. I charge $2,000 an hour.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you, mate. Brilliant. Thank you, Hannah. Nice to see you as well.
No problems.
We have Dan.
Hello.
Hey.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
Fantastic. Firstly, I wanted to say thank you for recommending the roulette positioning cards. They look fantastic. So I've just ordered a copy of those.
You're welcome.
But my question is specifically around, so I work within a B2B software business, and I suppose our positioning has kind of almost been done naturally for us because the business was started out of a problem. So we're a niche within a niche within a niche. So we address a problem for people within a niche of education, and then we only talk to people in the finance sector. So our positioning is almost kind of done for us. I suppose the question really is, how deep do we go? Do we need to go one step further to addressing, even smaller subset of people within that? Or do we need to do something more to make sure that the position that we're doing at the moment is landing?
It depends. So why are you asking yourself this question? Are you in like struggling financially? What's the situation, the context?
No, not struggling. We're in year 3. So last year we surpassed our financial target by like 100 and something %. We did really well. This year target's doubled. So like it's getting bigger and bigger. And it's always, the financial drive of the business is to become, the kind of go-to provider for this particular type of software within that particular niche. But it's not necessarily looking at the individual kind of nuances of people that are in that are kind of segmented within that market. So my fear is that we are still talking to everybody within that space rather than talking to a specific group of people that know they have this recognized problem. So it's like, how do I understand that, and how do I then get that across to the team that the founding team that just obviously want to make money and make it viable.
So what will be your market share in that market, like specifically?
At the moment, I think it's it's about just under 10% at the moment, I think.
Okay. So, I mean, the question is then, how do you grab most market share, right? How do you keep growing in that space? No? Is that you think is where you want to go, or you'd rather double down on a smaller segment?
Absolutely. I mean, that's my thing is, okay, well, like I want to make sure that we really focus on one particular segment and just get that right, and then kind of build from there. But the kind of overriding pressure is, well, we need to make more money than that, and we're not going to get 100% share in that segment, which means it's enough to hit our revenue target. So we have to target, all 5 of the segments rather than just one of them.
So I would try to identify what is one segment where you have like higher than 50% market share in a way, and pat yourself in the back and say like, fucking amazing, well done, we've been that far. And then I would do the exercise I give, which is there a next underserved segment in that market where you can really start to build stuff that really fits them well, and do that exercise again, where you've nailed one segment, how do you go to the next one? Also, I'm very afraid when I hear like going after multiple segments at the same time. It's impossible to do properly. So I would really like narrow it down to one new segment that is underserved for one reason, and like nailing that again, use the resources, the momentum, and then grow and grow. Because if you keep doing that, you will have more than 10% market share in the global market. But without knowing your specific industry and where you are right now, I would say that would be my advice. The more you can invest in longer term brand building things, so doing like the 60-40 rule, like 60% brand building, 40% short-term sales activation. I would try to invest in brand building in your category and try to reach a lot of people with kind of non-salesy message that people notice. And while making sure that you keep that segment in mind, right? So trying to build mental availability, trying to have more and more people knowing about you and start Googling you and whatever. So it feels like from the context you gave me, this is probably a good next step, is to invest in more reach while keeping the short term on that segment, but also building the future with brand building.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Does it make sense?
Yes, it does. Yeah. I mean, if I had more time with you, I'd ask you more specific questions, but
send me a message.
I will do. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Daniel.
Cheers, bye.
Cool. So we have a question from David, who can't join. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So we've got four left, and then cool. So we'll go from there. So David. This is a long message, but David says that they're a family-run fire alarm installation company that have been in business for over 50 years and done next to nothing in terms of marketing to expand the business. They've grown consistently through tender applications for the public sector and then strategic acquisitions. The board are a father and son and are of the opinion, well, we've managed for 50 years, so why change now? Their previous marketing manager was underpaid, so they were astonished by the request for a decent salary. Our current strategy is to submit tenders for fire alarms and of tenders. I asked who the target market was, and they said the worst nightmare, everyone. Internally, I was shouting, going after everyone is not a target, but I managed to keep my calm. When I asked them for a marketing budget, they said 0. I nearly lost it. What would you suggest as a no-cost quick win to get the best impact to get them on board?
So no cost, quick win. It's an important challenge, because I know it's the case of a lot of people who don't necessarily work in B2B tech SaaS in the real world, where a lot of people don't really understand what marketing truly is. So, there's 3 steps in marketing: diagnosis, strategy, tactics. So I think we need to start at diagnosis here. One of the best ways to get them on board is try ask them the question in reverse. Instead of saying who are targeting, we would ask who are not targeting. So if they say everyone, you say, well, then are we after, like you take the weirdest example. The weirdest target market is definitely not. And you say, okay, well, then it's not everyone. So you can play that game of like the opposite and say, those are all the things that you shouldn't do, that we are not going to go after, meaning the opposite then is who we're going to go after. And then I would try to shock them a bit and say, let's invite some customers in, let's invite prospective clients in and whatever. And let's just make them talk about our business, what they think of our website and how we talk. and where they hang out, and ask them the question in front of those two people. And unless they are in deep pain in one way, shape, or form, there's a reason why they hired you. You need to understand that from their perspective. What keeps them up at night? I think it's about empathy as well for them. Obviously, they've done massively well in the last 15 years. So why did they hire a marketing person then? What's the pain? What keeps them up at night? How can you talk the same language? What is the thing that makes them say, we need marketing after all? So there must be a reason. And I will double down on that and say, hey, I know you see marketing as like this kind of millennial horseshit, campaigns in TikTok and whatever. But like marketing is way bigger than just communication and advertising. Marketing is about obsessing over a group of people, serving them the best way possible. And I know we both want that. So diagnosis first, what's going on in the context and the market you're in, followed by a single one-page strategy. I would advise everyone to read the book Good Strategy, Bad Strategy about this, followed by a set of tactics. But get them in the diagnosis part. That will be my zero cost solution, even though it takes time. So there's nothing that is really zero cost.
Absolutely. I love it. Thank you, mate. So we got a question from Paul, who I think is not part of the To the End Club. So I'll ask it for him. So Paul asks, how do you respond to the Ehrenberg Bass advice to target all category buyers? And so this is Byron Sharp, right? Yeah, so great question. So this advice is very good for brands. And this is the key thing I wanted to mention before. Brands, in their definition, and Mark Ritson would say the same thing, are companies that are 5, 6, 7 years old or more, who have a loyal following already, a proven product, a proven business model, and they have a significant market share in a specific category. That book is great once you have reached that stage or when you're about to reach that stage. But be very careful reading that book thinking that as a small startup that needs to get off the ground, you need to do this. By all means, if you have millions of investors, millions of dollars, of pounds, or euros of investment, do this if you can. But for 99.99% of companies, that advice doesn't work for them at that stage. You need to pick a smaller market, a smaller category, and yes, you can then reach as many as you can in that category. And that's the beauty of it, because you have limited resources. So if you pick a tiny little bubble, a tiny swimming pool instead of the entire ocean, you can dye purple, as Seth Godin would say. But if you try to dye the ocean purple, nothing will work, right? It's not going to stick. So this is my advice in a nutshell. Be very careful when you read books around brands, because they're not for you if you're a small business, startup, solopreneur, consultant, and whatnot. Love it. Thank you, mate. That's really insightful, actually, because I hadn't appreciated the nuance in that. But that's really, really interesting. And I think that also speaks to something which is so often you speak about, or you hear this marketing advice from these people you really respect, but you have to work so hard to apply it to your own context, right? To be very careful with this. And that's where the money is mostly. Like those brand managers, brand experts, and consultants get 30K a day advising for those big brands. And it's natural that they write from their perspective. So how brands grow part 2. There's a few others that just talk about brands. Mark Ritson talks about brands. His mini MBA is about brand. So I would be, again, careful. Absolutely. Thank you, mate. That's really, really great. So we've got a question from Mike, who likewise has left us. So Mike says, my favorite "it's bullshit" phrase is "new and improved." Logically, if something is new, then it can't be improved. The reverse also applies. So if it's improved, then it can't be new. Do you agree? Wow, that's a question. I do. Next. Yeah, there we go. Lovely. I just want to check whether Joel is here quickly. Joel, do you want to pop in the chat whether you're happy to ask your own question or whether you want me to do it very quickly? In the meantime, Louis, I'm going to ask Wicked. So Joel says they're happy to speak. So and thanks everyone for staying that long, and thanks Joe for emceeing all around. No worries, man. It's been an absolute pleasure. There's a real decent proportion of the audience still here, so I think it's the gold that you've been putting out. So Joel, the last question of the day, man. So
no pressure. Better
be good.
And I first of all have to say my life is basically complete now. I actually have the chance to talk to Louis Grenier. This is pretty darn cool. You're blushing, but I'm trying not to wet myself.
I'm just
not blushing, it's the sun.
So my question is that I'm working on a white paper at work, and it's about like the death of the third-party cookies that Google is planning to introduce on Chrome and all of that next year. And in doing the research for the paper and like trying to put it together, I'm thinking to myself, a white paper is a really heavy document. We want to try to use this to attract more clients and stuff and all of that. But I'm just like trying to, having like listened to you and tune into like marketing meetups and things like that, I'm just like trying to think about how do I make this stand out? How do I make this a compelling document that will trigger actions for people to be like, oh, okay, I want to do something about this?
So I would ask, great question. And I'm not the guru, far from it. I'm just a normal bloke like you, and like it's funny to hear. So thank you so much. It touches me a lot. But don't wet yourself, please. So I would I would ask people in your customer list, the type of people you want to attract. I would ask them, what do you typically hate about white papers first? And make them really, really like to go for it 100%. What do you typically hate about the typical B2B white papers and reports that are being sent to you every day first? That'll give you a lot of ideas, and you'll find plenty of ideas already. So I did this exercise when I was working at Hotjar. I wanted to create a virtual event that didn't suck, and we asked this question. I investigated on LinkedIn as well. I remember searching for keywords such as hate and then virtual events, and I stumbled upon a LinkedIn post of someone ranting about it, saying it's like a 1 hour talk. They share only 2 minutes of actionable advice. The rest is a sales pitch, blah blah blah, right? And I was like, okay, what can I do to like remove as much from this? Like, what can I play on that make people feel, oh, that's different? And it came to me the next morning, and I was like, we do that internally. We do lighting talks. We used to do lighting talks when I was at Hotjar, where like people share something for 5 minutes during our meetups. And I said, this is it. They hate sales pitch. They hate long talk. Let's do 5 minutes, every speaker 5 minutes. And we played with this idea. We went all in with that. So 5 minutes, 5 talks per day, 5 days a week, right? It went bonkers. We had 16,000 registrations for it. We advertise and whatever, but that's what I would challenge you to do. So you can't take a regular white paper and make it stand out, but you can play with that format. What do they hate the most about? And the second thing is you can do that yourself. You can list down what is typically done on the white paper, the traditional framework or the things that typically is done there, and play in one dimension with it. Is it the length? Is it the format? Is it the way it's talked about? Is it the gating, the fact that they have to give an email? Like, what is it, right? And it's going to feel a bit risky. You know, some people in your company might say, are you sure you want to do this? And that's when you need to do it.
Great. Thanks so much for that, Louis. Just want to appreciate Joe for running these things and Louis for taking the time to answer my question as well. Take care and all the best.
Thank you, man.
You're so welcome.
Thank you very much. And I love that. That's a question, a comment from Diane, who at the end says, ending with a bang. And I'd say, absolutely. So honestly, Louis, what a marathon, but like phenomenal, mate. The knowledge in your head there will help a lot of people. So thank you so much. And thank you to everyone who tuned in and like, I've been laughing along so much to these chats coming in.
I would say one thing, if I may. Thank you so much, all of you, for sticking in and staying in. And for you, if you're watching this recording right now, please add me on LinkedIn, find me on LinkedIn. And as Joe said, I have a newsletter where I share practical tips just every week or every 2 weeks, depending on the summer schedule and whatnot. If you can subscribe to that, it's free. That'll be the only thing I'll ask you to do. And yeah, I really appreciate it. I give you like best of luck with whatever you're doing. It takes courage to do what you're doing. It takes courage to learn new stuff, to challenge yourself. And Joe, absolute like best emceeing ever. Thank you so much for like putting everyone in and giving me a chance to talk to your wonderful community once again. I really mean it, and it's an honor to know you, to be your friend, and I hope one day we'll be able to do that in person with a lot of people, maybe in Wembley Stadium or something like that.
Yeah. I'm going for it. Absolutely game. Thank you, mate. You know, honestly, everything you said and more right back at you. It's such a pleasure. And I'll even bring Annie along, and we can give little smushes. So Thank you to everyone for watching in. Please do. I'll link in everything Louis just spoke about in the follow-up email as well. So please check it out, and please also say thank you to the sponsors as well. That'll make a huge difference. Honestly, these comments coming through are so lovely. So most importantly, thank you to everyone who's been in the To the End club. We made it, and it was absolutely phenomenal. So thank you so much. Have a lovely day. And Louis, thank you again, mate.